So if we look at this first section of what we've talked about, what I'm taking away from that first section is that the times were such that a variety of people were coming to Gujarat. In that kind of ecosystem, Bhagwan Swaminarayan establishes the fellowship, and we kind of appreciate what establish means. It's not just coming and planting a flag, but it's saying, building that sense of community by instructing people to write books and do things in the vernacular as well as in Sanskrit and so many other languages.
And along with that, beliefs, practices, festivals, right? Gadda Pratham 3, where Maharaj talks about Ame Samaya Kem Kariye Che.
To bring people together, right? So he's actively kind of creating this community, and in his own time, he's allowing a lot of diversity within that community. So, and a diversity, to be very clear about that, is that the philosophical principles are uniform, right? Everybody believes in the same tattva gnan, let's say, that Bhagwan Swaminarayan is putting out. Everyone is the Ishtadev Bhavana, and those things are all there. But around that, because each of those people come from different backgrounds, not just geographically, but even from different faith traditions. Like you said, you've got Shaiv tradition people like Magnidam and others who are coming in. You've got Shakta tradition people, you've got Vaishnava tradition people. And they're all kind of coalescing around Bhagwan Swaminarayan and seeing him as the Ishtadev in that own lifetime. Bishop Haber famously mentioned this in his diary, that Bhagwan Swaminarayan travels. And in that travel, there's a diversity of people around him, because he probably saw Miyaji and Ratanji and all these people from different backgrounds all being there together. So Maharaj has, in a very active way, created a diverse community. And I think that is a lesson I take strongly, because I think it identifies this idea that there can be people who share values, that share philosophy, that share praxis, and still have quite a bit of diversity. Sometimes in our own heads, maybe, we start imagining that everybody in satsang is the same, or everybody's likes and dislikes and everybody's behavior, because we're trying to go to the same ideal, should be uniform. But that's not true. There's a lot of diversity that is welcomed by Maharaj himself in his time, and is welcome today as well, and exists today if we're just open enough to receive it, interact with it, and kind of take it as a part of our faith journey.
And eklu welcome nahi, but necessary.
Okay.
Because if Bhagwan Swaminarayan had not taken 4, 5, 7, 8 of these different Nansantos, 500 of these Paramhansas, right? And given them space within the community, especially in the context of these poets, how would you attract other people? Think about it. Premanand Swami had a different cultural and musical sphere. Brahmanand Swami had his own Ishwar, and they all were able to speak to different factions of society. And those people were now then able to understand who Bhagwan Swaminarayan was, what his Mahima was, how to engage with him, Emna Leela Charitra kevi rite sambhalva, in their own language, in their own register, in their own musical repertoire. So Bhagwan Swaminarayan is a mastermind in that way, where he brings these people together, he gives them voice, and they take his Tattvagnan, his theology, and I talk about it extensively in the context of Nishkuran Swami, who does it mainly in Gujarati. Premanand Swami, who does it mainly in Braj Bhasha and Hindavi. And we can do that with the other poets as well. But in doing so, they are able to reach different people and explain to them the greatness of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. And
I think that's a good segue to the second part of where I think we can go, is to say, okay, so there's this diverse Gujarat and a diverse Sampradaya that's being formed within the diversity of Hinduism. And that's happening. Now, something that then your thesis is focusing on, and that we can now talk about maybe with a more focus, is music and Sangeet and Bhakti Sangeet's role in that, right? So you've, I think, segued perfectly to say, yeah, it's powerful because it becomes a mode for a variety of people to engage with these ideas. Is that, do you see as the primary role, or do you think there's like other depth there that you think?
It's everyday. It's quotidian. Jibe, kane, hridaye chadi jai, right? What do I mean by that? What is bhakti?
Love for your Ishtadev. That's how I would describe it.
So if you, yes, that's certainly one of the ways to think about bhakti. Bhakti comes from the Sanskrit dhatu, verbal root, bhaj.
Right.
And bhaj is like every meaning under the sun you can apply to
Can
bhaj,
apply there.
right? So bhaj is to share, to participate, to serve, to love, as you said, to eat, to cook. So you think of the word itself, bhaj, right? એમાં સેવાનો ભાવ આવે છે, પ્રેમ લક્ષણા ભક્તિનો ભાવ આવે છે, બધા સાથે હળવા મળવાનો ભાવ આવે છે, એકરૂપ થવાનો ભાવ આવે છે, સેવા કરવાનો ભાવ એ બધા ભાવ આવે છે. જમવાનો, જમાડવાનો, experience કરવાનો. It's a very sensory, sensual nahi, but sensory experience. Bhakti is something
There's a physicality to it.
That's it. You can embody it, right? You can hear it, you can see it, you can feel it, you can smell it. એ ભક્તિ છે. And what better way to articulate that than to do so through everyday poetry and singing? કેમ ભગવાન સ્વામિનારાયણે આ 8 સંતોના જે પદો કે 5 સંતોના પદો આપણે ફોકસ કરીએ છીએ, 4-5 સંતોના પદોને આટલું પ્રાધાન્ય આપ્યું? Farmers during that time? Merchants during that time? Right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other professions at that time.
Potters, carpenters,
Yeah.
like
Excellent.
yeah, everyone.
એ લોકો જ્યારે એમનું કામ કરતા હોય, how many of them spoke Sanskrit or Persian or Arabic or any of the classical languages? Mandarin, whatever.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Very few. What did they speak? They spoke vernacular. They sang vernacular. તો પદો એવી એક વસ્તુ છે જે જીભે ચડી જાય, પ્રવૃત્તિ કરતા કરતા, હળ હાંકતા હાંકતા, right? તમે ખેતરમાં તો હળ હાંકતા હાંકતા, ફાર્મિંગ કરતા કરતા, તમે like you said pottery કે એવું કંઈક બનાવતા હો with your hands, કાં તો ઘરે જે બહેનો હતા એ પણ કામ કરતા કરતા, આજે પણ આપણને વૈષ્ણવ પરંપરા, સ્વામિનારાયણ પરંપરામાં, હિન્દુ ધર્મમાં as they're doing સેવા, પદો ગાતા ગાતા, કાં તો ધૂન ગાતા ગાતા.
If you're cooking, if you're doing anything around the house, they'll still have it on. Lots of homes kind of like have gatha or bhajan playing even when cleaning is going on.
Exactly.
Right?
So
and some people who don't have context of where this comes from sometimes would look at that maybe as an insult, right? That you're not paying attention to the bhajan like you're doing this.
I see what you're saying.
But for us, it's a thing about constantly being in that kind of space, right? To be in that sort of environment and to have that playing all the time.
So that's why I think music is important, A, for that community formation aspect, where it takes Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Tattvagnan, it takes Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Swarup Nishta, it takes Bhagwan Swaminarayan's beliefs and practices, his words from the Vaishnava. There's an entire section in the book where I talk about how Nishkuran Swami Premanand Swami take betha verses from the Vachnamrit અને એને પદગ્રસ્ત કરે છે, in the sense that they give musicality to those ideas, those
they turn prose into verse.
Exactly. And then પછી લોકો ગાવા માંડે simple ગુજરાતીમાં, simple braj ભાષામાં.
So you don't have to memorize the Vachnamrit. You sing those kirtans and you're easier, more likely to remember the poem. So you take that knowledge in.
So if bhakti is every day, if bhakti is sensory, if bhakti is a celebration, music and these buds are the best way to do it. And that is why I think the title of my dissertation, Nishkuranand Premanand Swami and the musical formation of the Swaminarayan Sampradaya. I argue that Sampradaya je bandhayo, Bhagwan Swaminarayan bandhyo, ya nand santoના પદો, એમના ભજનો, એમના કીર્તનો દ્વારા બંધાયો. કારણ કે that's how the word got to the everyday person in Gujarat and beyond.
So the community formation is because of its diversity of language and tools, and the kind of the bhakti, the sustenance of the bhakti comes from the fact that it is reaching everywhere to the common man and allowing that person to feel, right? Not just to cognate something, but to actually feel it.
Feel it?
You were giving the example of Dalpatram saying that Premanand Swami singing a Garbi of Maharaj returning to Akshardham a decade after is still enough to have people faint, right? The famous prasang that we always hear about is when Shiji Maharaj is sitting in a sabha and artists come from a royal court saying that we've been told to challenge your sadhus to this kind of musical battle. Battle is a really strong word, but I think in jest anyway, I think it serves the purpose.
Or that we were just told to come in and hear your musicians because apparently they're exemplaries in their field. Yeah.
And then you have Premanand Swami ask Shiji Maharaj, what rag should I sing? And Maharaj says a rag which is usually sung in the morning, and he's singing in the evening, and the entire environment changes.
Yeah.
You know, that's the prasang that we hear in the lore that we kind of really identify with. They have that power in their own words. So today, does that continue? And I think in your journey of research, you must have come across this a little bit, right? Where even today, these buds are doing the community formation, are doing the everyday attachment.
I think there's 3 or 4 things that Bhakti Sangeet music, Bhakti Sangeet, Bhakti music does for us. First, today, in that context of your question, today it helps us recreate the environment that people experienced during Bhagwan Swaminarayan's time. So when you're celebrating, say, the Shakotsav, Paramhans નું બહુ પ્રખ્યાત પદ છે, ફેમસ પદ છે, વડી વખાણું લીલા લોયા ગામની, સુણતા શ્રવણે પાતક પ્રલય થાય જો. And then in that pad, Paramhans Swami goes on to describe કે રીંગણા ભગવાન સ્વામિનારાયણે કેવી રીતે કાપ્યા શાકોત્સવ માટે. હલ્દીવાળા હાથ લુએ નીચે ધોતીએ, એટલે કે હળદરનો જે વઘાર કર્યો ઘીમાં, વંત્યાક એટલે રીંગણાનો, એનો વઘાર કર્યો, પછી હળદરવાળા હાથ હોય એમણે ધોતીએ કેવી રીતે વાઇપ કર્યા કે લૂછ્યા. That entire description takes you back to what the Shakotsav in Bhagwan Swaminarayan's samay in Loya was like. So now today, if you're celebrating the Shakotsav in, say, Sarangpur, Gatada, Ahmedabad, Loya,
Chicago, New York,
Chicago,
Toronto.
New York, thank you. Okay, Sydney. Wherever, Abu Dhabi.
Right.
Wherever you're celebrating that Shakotsav, you can recreate. So now it's not just remembering, but it's recreating. You said that it's a bodily experience. You're re-experiencing the Shakotsav, that same bhakti, now in Abu Dhabi today when that pad is being sang. And only music can do that. Only music can do that, right? And there are studies on how music fundamentally changes you each time you hear it or you sing it. And so it is that change, it is that recreation, it is that sort of step back into time, that smruti that you have.
But I like that word recreation. I really like the way we talked about recreation and transportation back. But one thing I want you to talk about that maybe we haven't touched on yet is it is quite literally there. So I'm gonna maybe exaggerate its importance, and you can knock me down into reality. But when we hear about mantras, Vedic mantras, we're told that those mantras are powerful because of the swars, right? Of the tones that are being said, and the very pronunciations that are used have a physical impact as much as they have in terms of the oral impact. What's interesting to me is when you say recreating that instance, recreating that moment of love with God, it's quite literal with kirtans, isn't it? Because I think you were explaining a little bit earlier to me that we actually have record of how these kirtans were sung. So we're not just making up something along the way of how it could have been, but we are actually maybe singing things in the same exact way that they were sung 200, 220 years ago.
So the one thing I did during my research,
Yeah,
directly to answer your question, is that આ પદો આપણે ગાતા આવ્યા છીએ, right? At least 200 વર્ષથી હવે. We've been singing them for 200 years. And what we haven't done necessarily is to go back into the original text, the manuscripts. And they exist. They exist from Bhagwan Swaminarayan's time. So it's not like these things were just...
And you're not talking about one or two.
No.
Yeah.
Premanand Swami himself, Premanand Swami પોતે એમની હયાતીમાં, in his presence, એ ધામમાં ગયા એ પહેલા, he took 2 sets of chopda. And when I say chopda, I mean about 18 inches tall, about 10 to 12 inches long, and fairly thick. Each one with about...
It's like an A3
4 to 5,
size, yeah.
4 to 500 buds each.
Wow.
So આવા 5 ચોપડા એમણે ગઢડામાં જે ગોપીનાથ દેવનું મંદિર છે ત્યાં ગોપીનાથ દેવને સમર્પિત કર્યા.
So one set he gives in Gadra.
Gadra, and then another set of 5 texts he gives in identical. During his lifetime, he gives to Vartal. Lakshminarayan Hari Krishna Maharaj nije મૂર્તિ ભગવાન સ્વામિનારાયણે પધરાવી છે, પોતાની મૂર્તિ સ્વસ્વરૂપની. There he offers them, and the colophon, or the sort of note, ending note, and each of those manuscripts says the poet has asked the scribes to write these Panch Chopra and offer them in Gadada and Vartal. So they're preserved. They're preserved in a way with the musicality. What do I mean by that? If you look at the manuscripts of Surdas Ji, Kabir Ji, Mirabai, all of those that come much long after their time, the earliest manuscripts are not always from the poet's lifetimes. Okay. And if they are, they look very different from the ones that are prevalent and that are circulating today. The earliest manuscripts didn't always contain rags. The earliest manuscripts of Premanand Swami's Pads, Nishkuran Swami's Pads, Brahmanand Swami's Pads from their lifetime include the name of ragas. So now we know a very specific, at least framework, if not the exact dhar or the exact tune, we know the melodic framework within which they were composed and sung by the poet-musician during their time in Bhagwan Swaminarayan's presence. In fact, in the Premanand Swami chapter, I talk about this one pad, which I found in a manuscript in Vartal, in which Premanand Swami not only mentions that he has composed this pad in Rag Malhar, which is a monsoon season raga, which is sung especially when it's about to rain. And I am so patiently waiting for the rains right now to melt because it's so hot. I'm not used to the heat. I'm not used to this heat. But so that, and then not only that, but it's hard to say. I don't think maybe it was Premanand Swami himself, but certainly someone that was listening to him sing is noting the surs.
Oh,
so there are musical notations on this manuscript about how Premanand Swami chose to sing Rag Malhar. Now, I'm a nerd when it comes to these things.
Yeah, no, it's good though.
And you realize how rare this is. Anyone that has studied other manuscripts will tell you, in fact, I don't find that in Brahman Sai, Nishkuran Sai, Muktanand Swami's manuscripts yet either. And as I said, I've been to several different pilgrimage spots and repositories of these manuscripts around the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, and I've gone through hundreds of manuscripts of these Bhakti poets. And I have not been able to find that anywhere. So
it's one of the benefits, I guess, of being classically trained, right? Like you were saying earlier, we sometimes forget that these are people, their poetry is fully inspired, but there's this added bonus of them being trained in music, right? Like this is not somebody who just on his own was singing in the shower and out of love, which is a great thing to do. But here it was that genuine love and organic inspiration. But it had we have the benefit of them also being classically trained, so we can get this, right? And so now today when you sing that kirtan with those markings, you will be transported because you know exactly, like you said, the framework and the tal and everything that people have been singing in. So you said that's one thing that Bhakti Sangeet does. It transports us back, makes that
transports
moment
us back. Yeah, it takes us back. The second thing is smruti. Music makes, now let's talk about, this is called Satsang Conversations, right? The series. So let's talk about how important music is to the spiritual sadhana as well. Sometimes we think music is just is an aesthetic add-on. Gaiye to loko ne maja aave, gaiye to loko aine baise. Music is inherent, is integral, it's imperative to bhakti. My late guru, Sangeet Martand Pandit Jasraj ji, used to say, Pandit ji used to say, Swar se Ishwar ni sadhana. Swar thi Ishwar sudhi pahunchaye che. So by perfecting the swar, by singing, you are actually offering bhakti which leads you to God. What do I mean by that? Jem kokne khawanu pirasu is an act of bhakti. Kokne kaik bhanavu is an act of service. Kokne kaik arthik dan karu, to give monetary donations, is an act of service. To clean the hallway or mop the studio after we're done here is an act of service. Evi જ રીતે bhajan gava is an act of seva and is an act of bhakti. Not me, but Bhagwan Swaminarayan says that in his Vachana.
Absolutely.
Right? And in fact, I think the first and foremost example or reference that we can look at in the Vachnamrita where Bhagwan Swaminarayan talks about this is when he is specifically talking about Premanand Swami. If I remember correctly, it is, okay, I can't find the reference here, but I think it is Madhya 27, and in which Vanduna Padnu Je Vachnamrit che, and I may be wrong, so
we'll
someone
fact
will
check you
comment.
later.
Someone will comment on. Someone will comment on the podcast. But e Vachnamrit ma, it's called Vanduna Padnu.
That's the header.
અને સંતના મધ્ય રહેવાનું, સંતના મધ્ય રહ્યાનું Vachnamrit. And in that, Bhagwan Swaminarayan says, Premanand Swami પદ ગાય છે, વંદુ સહજાનંદ રસ રૂપ અનુપમ સારને રેલો, જેને ભજતા છૂટે ફંદ કરે ભવ પારને રેલો. એક જ વર્સ ગાયો મેં. આવા 8 પદ છે. Okay, 8
and we're supposed to sing them every night, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For Cheshta.
Right? So exactly part of the Cheshta, the last section of the Cheshta. હવે એ પદ પ્રેમાનંદ સ્વામી ગાય છે. ગાયા પછી મહારાજ શું કહે છે કે આ પદ સાંભળ્યા પછી મને એમ થયું કે ઊભા થઈને આ સાધુને મારે સાષ્ટાંગ દંડવત પ્રણામ કરવા જોઈએ. So I should do a dandvat pranam to this sadhu.
Prostrate to him. Yeah.
Prostrate to him. કેમ? Because આ સાધુ આવી રીતે જે ભગવાનની મૂર્તિનું ધ્યાન ચિંતવે છે, and he is able to verbalize it and musically perform it in this way, એને મારે દંડવત પ્રણામ કરવા જોઈએ. And then he goes on to praise sadhus such as this who can sing and articulate in this way because they are doing smruti.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? That you cannot sing about these things without observing them first, right? Like without loving observation, you cannot compose.
Manilal C. Parekh, who was the first English biographer of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, he was આપણા readers, listeners ને સાંભળીને મજા આવશે. It's again a nerdy fact. He was the founder of the Hindu Church of Christ, if I remember, Hindu Church of Christ it was called. So he was a Christian padri,
right?
A Christian priest, theologian, and he decided...
Out of Kera? Nadiad? Somewhere
Anand,
like that?
Yeah, somewhere in Anand, I think. And he wrote the first English biography of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, a great work. And some would argue it had these aspects of bhakti and devotion in them. And as a Christian priest...
A foundational work, because it's one of the first,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And in that he goes, okay, the only reason Premanand Swami, Brahmanand Swami, Nishwan Swami, Muktanand Swami, Devanand Swami were able to create these kinds of bhakti pads was because Bhagwan Swaminarayan was alive, was playing, was creating these Leela Charitras, these divine acts of Leela, of play, if we may call it that, in front of them. Pratyaksha ત્યાં હાજર હતા.
There has to be a muse for the music.
And that's exactly, right? And that's the only reason these guys were able to write such pads and then to musically bind and perform.
So Maharaj is there, but equally from what you were saying earlier, these people had a genuine bhakti for him, right? Which is equally, and the reason I'm kind of thinking of that is nothing I'm saying in a word sense is new, but in terms of a realization, I think sometimes we forget that, like you said, singing a bhajan and in these cases crafting those bhajans doesn't happen unless you have first observed those things. You know, if you're writing a poem about the Shakotsav that you sung earlier, you've got to notice how he wipes the turmeric on his clothes before you can write and sing about him wiping those things. You know what I mean? Like that loving, to care enough to watch how he's wiping that turmeric is love. And it's only that love that can then translate into a poem or a kirtan otherwise. You could, otherwise what you would sit there and do is copy paste maybe kind of very famous analogies over and over again. So not that the Paramhans haven't used famous analogies, right? For example, if you want to ever talk about God's eyes, you will always see the reference to a lotus leaf, right? Like, so those themes are there.
Or an almond.
Yeah, or an almond, right? You'll see those sort of kind of themes there. So it's not that those things are denigrated, but these newer kind of analogies and these kind of newer descriptions and kind of historical descriptions and that sort of thing that's happening is again, because it's bhakti.
And let's think about the process of how these are being created and sung very quickly, right? Because it's equally as important. The very famous prasang within the Swaminarayan Sampradaya is of Brahmanand Swami, who was creating that pad instantly. Taro chatak rangilo shedalo. I won't sing it now because we're short on time. But famously known ke Brahmanand Swami katha majulu khata tha. He was sleeping, dozing off. There was a prakran going on at that time. If anyone falls asleep in katha, Maharaj had a berko, right? A short string of beads that he would throw at someone. And then the embarrassing act of sort of getting up, waking up after being hit by the berko, getting up in front of the entire sabha, coming up to Maharaj, giving him back the berko, apologizing, going back to your seat. And Maharaj Brahmanand Swami, he hit him with that berko, and Brahmanand Swami instantly denied the fact of ever sleeping. He said, I was creating a bhakti pad for you. And Maharaj goes,
let's hear it.
Let's hear it. Exactly. And Brahmanand Swami goes, Aksharatitdas. One condition. I sing a line, it's a garbi, so you have to, the audience has to follow or else nitar maja nahi aave. And if it's famously said that jevi rite audience jewe repeat karti hai line, the refrain, itle tarat Brahmanand Swami would create the next verse, right? But think, that's the one that is celebrated. But think about how all these pads were being written. Almost instantly, even if it's within the half hour.
They were taking Chatur Masause, right? We're going to have the 4 holy months are going to be coming and everyone takes special vows. These sadhus were taking vows of writing kirtans every day and not eating before those were written.
No, not drinking water.
Not drinking water, not drinking water until the chosad is written. Like I write 4 pads a day before I can have water. And Preman Swami, since we're on him right now, I mean, the prasang that always makes me kind of just, I'm in awe of what sort of musician and poet and bhakti poet Preman Swami is the famous prasang where he's at the riverbank in Gadara and he starts singing in the middle of the night. And Maharaj gets up out of the room. If anybody who's gone to Gadara knows that smallish village at the time, from the river to the Aksharatitdas is not very near, right? Like, but it's dead silent for sure. You know, there's no radio and TV humming in the background. It's absolutely dead silent. But for Preman Swami to be vocally so powerful from a skill set point of view, but for his words to be so engaging that Maharaj is pulled to the riverfront, stands behind him as he sings. It's only until dawn breaks that Preman Swami turns around.
And without his footwear, huh?
Yeah, without his footwear. He turns around and sees Shriji Maharaj and is just prostrate. Maharaj, how long have you been here? And that to me is like you're saying, like what circumstances and how were these things written? In the middle of the night and right after an event and sometimes instantly in an audience, but how much must be inside? The famous Gujarati kevat, kuama hoy to vedamave. Like how deep must be the well of devotion inside before it makes it out, into the public forum.